Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Film Seizure. I'm Jason Oliver, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Geoff Arbuckle and Chuck Moore. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
We did it again. We did it again.
You guys.
A bunch of yucksters over here.
Yep.
Oh boy. We have such a fun episode today. One of my favorite movies as a kid. To my 13-year-old boyhood bedroom with this one because I had the poster on the wall.
Nice.
I was just obsessed with this movie. I loved it so much. I still love it. It is 1992's Sneakers.
Yeah.
It's a sneaky film, that Sneakers.
Super sneaky. Man, yeah, I had a Rivers Phoenix thing. I think a lot of boys did. Like, every boy wanted to be Rivers Phoenix, I think.
Or just the singular River Phoenix.
Rivers, yeah. Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Philip Rivers.
Philip Rivers, yeah. Well, yeah, everyone wants to be like super Catholic with 12,000 kids and play a quarterback for the Chargers.
And a noodle arm.
Is he a Catholic or is he a Protestant? Is he
He's
one
Catholic.
of those? Oh, is he?
Is he in Sneakers?
Nope.
Yes.
So River Phoenix, yes. This we're talking about another River Phoenix movie next week, but that one was a really important movie to me as a kid as well. But yeah, he was like, I don't know, there was something about him.
He's incredibly likable.
Yeah, I had this poster on my wall. I had Little Nikita. I had that poster.
Yeah.
That one is not a very good movie. I've recently watched that, and it is not good. He's great in it because he's great in everything. But
His Oscar nomination was Running on Empty. Was that? No. What was his?
did he have one? I didn't
Yes.
know
Is
he
My
had one.
Own Private Idaho, maybe?
No, it was.
I don't even know.
Hang on a second here. Yeah, I think it is Running on Empty.
I don't even know that I've seen that, to be honest.
Yes, playing Danny Pope, the son of fugitive parents, in a well-received performance that earned him a nomination for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor.
Nice.
Interesting.
Not surprised. Unsurprised. He probably would have had a few more had he.
Oh, he
Oh,
would have
surely.
won a bunch. I would guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Another one that I loved of his that I would love to bring to the podcast at some point was Mosquito Coast. He just kept popping up in all these movies that just had these huge impact on me as a kid. Of course, Last Crusade, Indiana Jones' Last Crusade. Anyway, we're talking about Sneakers. This one is one I've wanted to do on the show for a while, and Chuck suggested it, and I think that was finally the tipping point for Geoff to be like, all right, let's do Sneakers. So
Yeah, I was so anti-sneaker for 150 episodes or whatever, and then finally I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah, I had an experience with this film too. Me and some friend, we would have been 15 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're totally amped to go see this comedy, right?
Mhm.
At the theater, and one of their parents drove us up. We watched it. Didn't laugh a lot. There's not a ton of humor for kids in this. Not a ton anyway. But when we left, we were like, man, that movie was really good, but it wasn't that funny. And that was a joke with us. It still is 20 years later. Like, this movie has left an indelible impression on us, at least as far as like how we responded to it. It's like, yeah, it was good. It wasn't that funny.
Yeah, I saw this in the theater too, and I was just all into like spy shit and like technology gadgets and stuff, right? So this movie it hit all these buttons for me.
I saw this on VHS. It was probably, and to be honest with you, it was probably one that, like, my guess is went to the video store or something, and like mom was like, I also want to see this. It's like, okay, well, we'll just get it. I remember the trailers. This kind of takes me back to when E Entertainment used to have their trailer park show, where they would just show trailers, like late night Sunday nights or something like that. And that was like usually the last thing I watched before I went to bed for school the next morning. And I remember this being on there. And I think, let's see, when did this come out? It came out September of 92. So yeah, it was probably on there. Like, it was probably actually in the summer of 92 when this was shown on there. But, and I thought, oh, that's neat. And look at all these people that I know who they are, and it's, but it was not one that I would have gone to the theater by the time it came out in theater. I'm decreasing my going to the movies just school, school's going on now. If it had come out in the summertime, I would have probably seen it in the theater. But yeah, so it's one that, it's not one that I've watched a bunch, maybe only once before now. But I remember when you say sneakers, it's like, oh yeah, Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd, Sidney Poitier, and all those.
It's funny because the cast is one of those ones that, as I returned to this movie over the years, right? It's one of those movies where I was like, oh my God, I know who this guy is now. I know who this actor is now. Or when I first saw it when I was 13, I didn't necessarily have a full appreciation for who Sidney Poitier is, right?
Yeah.
Right. I knew Robert Redford, obviously. I mean, he was pretty hard to not know. And then River Phoenix, of course, Dan Aykroyd, of course, mostly because of SNL and Ghostbusters.
Sure.
But Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd probably was the biggest name in this movie for me when I was 13.
Oh yeah. I can see that for sure.
But then, as you watch this movie over the years, I didn't really know who Ben Kingsley was when I was 13. I think I maybe vaguely knew him as Gandhi, right?
Right.
David Strathairn is another one who he became a much bigger name later after this movie.
He's
Mary
the one.
McDonnell.
He's the one. Stratham is the one I really can't pick any of the roles just by seeing his face where I've seen him elsewhere. Everyone else, 100%. I'm like, oh, I know that. Obviously know that person, but
Yeah. Strathairn has made a career as quite a character actor. He probably is most known now, though, for Good Night and Good Luck, I would guess. He was nominated for a bunch of awards for that. He played Edward R. Murrow.
gotcha.
But yeah, he's been in tons and tons of movies. I think he wasn't even in the last Godzilla movie, Geoff?
I don't remember.
I think he was.
I block out a lot of the human people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was like a military guy or something in that. But then you have names like Stephen Tobolowsky, right? Who has just been that always that guy with that face that you recognize. He kind of made a career as playing that guy.
Was he Janik?
No, Janik.
Janik is Donald Logue.
Donald Logue, yeah.
Which is hilarious. Another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is hilarious. He's almost unrecognizable in this movie.
Yeah. No.
But anyway, it is one of those casts that just is perfect. It's this perfect cast that just kind of gets richer with time.
Yeah, Tobolowsky's the guy who works next door to Ben Kingsley.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
he's Werner. My voice is my passport. Verify me. He's that guy.
I know those faces 1,000%, but I don't know the names.
And yeah, you're right. David Strathairn was in Godzilla. He was the Admiral.
Yeah. But yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff.
Oh, he was in both Godzilla movies.
Cool.
From Legendary. So he's the one character who carries over, aside from the much better actors, like, never mind. Go ahead.
All right.
No, I'm talking about the two scientists. Never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, Strathairn was in LA Confidential also.
Yes, he was.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Ken Watanabe is who I'm talking about. And I guess it was...
Well, no, right there, Geoff?
Yeah, no, I'm doing fine. I'm fine.
You're
I'm
researching?
okay. I'm just reading. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, this movie it hit on all the little things that I just loved as a kid, and I've always just kind of gone back to this movie every other year or so. I probably watch this movie. I know I can, recite portions of it verbatim. It's just one that I'm really excited to talk about. So let's get into it. What is Sneakers about? Anybody want to start, or shall I?
Go for it. Go
right.
for it.
So it starts with this concept I've always found fascinating. This idea that you could test people's security systems by breaking into them. I think this concept has been used in a few different movies, but this was the first time I ever really recognized it as a thing. But that's what Robert Redford and his crew do. They're security consultants, and they break into like banks and things like that to essentially give a report on the vulnerabilities of the institution's security and what they need to shore up. And they get paid for that, which is kind of a cool job, right?
Yeah. I will also say that the one clerk at the bank who's typing $10,000 cashier's check, so it's not very good living. Fuck you, lady.
Yeah, I had the same thing. Yep.
I was that person 20 years ago. All right, and 20 years ago, I was typing up ungodly amounts on a check, and I was getting paid basically minimum wage. So shut up, lady. That $10,000 check is a pretty good business.
Oh, totally. Yeah, Susan and I both said that. I was like, man, what a like jerky thing to say to someone.
Yeah, it's like if you're the bank president and you can say, "Wow, I got off really cheap" or something, that's one thing, right? But you
got paid for one night. You got paid for one night, $10,000.
No shit, man.
Oh, I should mention
it might be worth noting.
There's a scene before this. Yeah. Thank you, Chuck.
No problem.
There's a flashback scene that takes place. It's between a young, who you assume is a young Robert Redford, and his buddy, who.
Well, the young Robert Redford totally looks like Sundance Kid.
Oh yeah.
Remember which one?
Well, what's funny about that is it's Phil Alden Robinson, and no, that's the director. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the actor. Sorry, that played him. But this was one of those ones where I watched it again and I realized something new about one of the cast members. That is the guy who plays Mike from Twin Peaks. He's Donna's boyfriend in Twin Peaks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But anyway, so I got David Lynch in. Boom. But yes, they've broken into kind of like a computer lab, and they're hacking the planet right now, and they're basically giving money from things like that, funneling money from the GOP to the Black Panthers, and funneling money from Nixon's campaign bank account to some sort of like legalized pot association, right?
Yeah.
So they're moving money. They're trying to essentially, as they say it, make the world a better place.
They are hacktivists.
Hacktivists. There you go.
Before that term was popular.
Yes. But Robert Redford, what's his name? He's got two names.
Martin Bryce.
Martin Bryce is his real name. It's
yeah. And Martin Bishop is what he changes it to.
Yeah.
He goes outside for a smoke or something.
He goes to get pizza because he lost a coin toss.
That's right. And when he's on his way back, his buddy's getting busted. Cosmo is getting busted. He's taken to prison. He goes to prison, and Robert Redford, Martin Bryce has to change his name to Martin Bishop, and he's, for 30 years essentially he's been in hiding.
Yep.
Yeah, he first went to Canada and then he came. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's so then that after your opening scene, you then have the scene of them breaking into the bank, and of course they play it up like they're actually criminals, but they're actually not. They're security consultants, and we go to essentially this is when we kind of meet the team, right? It's very Mission Impossible-esque, the way they play it. You've got everybody has sort of their set of skills. Robert Redford, is the leader, but you've got Dan Aykroyd, who plays a character named Mother, who is kind of the conspiracy theorist. The
oh God, yes. Yeah, at one point, Sidney Poitier is like, I can't talk to you. And I'm like, me too, Mr. Poitier. I would not be able to talk to him either.
You've got Sidney Poitier. He's the ex-NSA guy, right? He's ex-government agent.
He was CIA, wasn't he?
CIA.
Or CIA, yeah. David Strathairn is the blind guy who is the communications expert. Right?
Whistler.
Yeah, Whistler.
And he's basically Daredevil.
Yeah.
He really is, it seems, the most important piece of their team.
Oh, totally.
By a lot.
I don't
In almost
think
every
they get anywhere without him.
Yeah, in every situation, he is the most important guy. Yeah.
And then you've got River Phoenix, who plays Carl, who's kind of like their operations guy. He's the one that is sneaks in. He's the one who kind of infiltrates. He's the youngest of the group,
and he is horny.
Oh yeah, he's very horny.
Yep.
He's got those 19-year-old hormones going nuts.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the team. So I guess Carl's supposed to be a hacking genius too, but you don't really get a sense of that.
No, but what he does do really, really well is he does infiltrate, but he also is very good with like wires and like the actual engineering of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, so he's a very hands-on member of the team.
Yeah. Definitely. So all right. So what's next? They get a visit. Martin Bishop gets a visit from the NSA.
Right. The guy who is not Bill Murray's brother. It's not Brian Doyle Murray and the guy from Revenge of the Nerds.
Who's the guy from Revenge of the Nerds?
The redhead with the beard.
Oh, Timothy Busfield. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy and the other guy who's in a ton of things who looks a lot like Brian Doyle Murray but is not.
Yeah, he's another one of those faces, Eddie Jones. Yep. Absolutely.
So they basically say, hey, we got a job for you, and we know everybody on your team. Basically, everybody's a criminal of some sort or has been.
They have a little bit of a colored past.
Yeah, like even Kreese, which is Sidney Poitier, even he was essentially dishonorably discharged from the CIA.
Right.
Yeah.
But nobody really knows why. He just was, and he's not anymore. We find out later, but
kind of, but yeah.
Yeah, kind of, but it's all done in a jokey way.
But the big one that the NSA hangs over Bishop's head is that they know who he is.
Yes.
He's not gonna do the job. He has no interest. He knows, most of the jobs they've done or all the jobs they do are safe, right? Mm-hmm. They're not gonna get killed or hurt, but this is one that actually they're infiltrating a government, basically.
Yeah, they basically tell him it's illegal what they want him to do.
Right.
And that's why they want him to do it. They want somebody off the record, off the books to do it because the NSA can't. Right.
Yeah.
And if he does it, then they'll clear his record.
Yep.
So it all surrounds this guy, Dr. Gunter
Janik.
Yeah,
Gunter Janik. Yeah.
Gunter Janik, who
played by Donald Logue.
Right. Dressed like a middle-aged woman from the late 80s.
Yeah, I told Susan he sort of reminds me of the maestro from the Money Pit.
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah,
the long blonde hair.
So Martin is like, okay, well, this guy's super smart. I need somebody who's going to know what he's talking about. So we have our adjunct member of the team, which is his ex-girlfriend, played by Mary McDonnell.
Yep.
And she is incredibly intelligent and is very upper, like, you can tell that you can tell why they're exes because she probably tired of Robert Redford's boyishness about a lot of stuff. And she's like, fuck, I'm smarter than this.
But yeah,
Also,
she even calls his team a club. Like, you
Yeah,
don't have
it's
a
a little
job, you
boys
have a
club.
club. It's a
Yeah.
boys club.
yep. And so they go to this meeting, or to this symposium, really is what it is, I guess. And all the while, like, Robert Redford's trying to like find out. It's like, so you seeing anybody or whatever? And she's like, shh, and like hushing him. And then like he asks a different question, basically the same thing, hushes him. And then she's like, this isn't just about whatever science. It's about codes. So now Robert Redford, like being a code guy, it's like, oh wait, what? I'm gonna. He sits up straight. He's listening. Now she starts talking to him about something. He's hushing her, which is, this is kind of that. This is the comedy, right? It's not out and out jokey jokes. It's situational lightheartedness is what I like to call it, which is a little bit more adult, right? Like when we would have all, like, when this movie came out, the ages we were, nobody's getting kicked in the nuts. Nobody's getting, nobody's falling, into a pie or something. Nobody's
Robert
getting
Redford falls over a desk in the beginning, and that's like the one moment I probably laughed at hysterically as a kid.
Right.
But this stuff, yes, I appreciate way more now. I find it way funnier as an overstatement, but it's definitely funnier.
Well, it's clever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It's certainly clever.
It's playful. Yeah.
Right.
It sort of has in some ways it has that kind of that tone that the Sting has, right?
Yes.
And it's adult things, but it's done playfully and with for the most part non-mean-spirited intentions or cruelty, right? It's just there are high stakes, but it's done in a very sort of just playful is really just the word.
This is exactly the formula that the Marvel movies use.
Yeah.
High stakes, but with a playful wink and a smile. Which also, I mean, a lot of very successful things do that. The James Bond series does that. I mean, especially in the Sean Connery and Roger Moore days. It's something that Jason, was this the one where you said you were going to steal my line about this is something this is a type of movie that's not made anymore? Oh
no, it was we already did that one.
Okay, well, I'm going to say,
or maybe we didn't, but they did, but they don't make them like this anymore.
Because this movie in 2021 is Fast and Furious 10. No, it is. None of like anybody watching this movie 30 years backwards, right, would think these people are nerds, boring, and stupid. There's no explosions, there's no fast cars, there's no hard asses to give you that sense of these are the good guys because they're hard asses. These are good guys because they're good at what they do.
Yeah, they're just they're kind of a little bit caricature, but they're just fun characters who work well together and play off one another and have these individual one-on-one dynamics that change and that are interesting to watch. It's just really well written in that way. There are little moments too, like when Martin says he's going to ask Liz to be his date to go see Janik, and they all turn to look at him, right?
Like, oh, no.
They're incredulous by this, or they're like, oh no, And I love that. It's good storytelling. It tells you everything you need to know about their relationship before they meet.
Yeah,
right. Anyway,
yeah, and the something I don't think we mentioned is that Bishop's job, or Bryce's job, is to steal a black box.
Yeah.
Right.
And the black box is something that Janik has. And Janik is doing the talk at the, I don't know, I think it's a university or something.
And it's under a project name called C-Tech Astronomy as well.
C-Tech Astronomy.
Yeah. And then they think that they're worried that this box is going to get into the hands of the Russians, and they can't have that. So they want Martin to steal it.
Yep.
But he doesn't quite know why. But you start to get that sense once, they do start talking about encryption and code breaking. it starts to think. He starts to think, and he perks up, and he's like, okay, this, maybe it's some sort of code breaking device. You're not really sure, but that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, and so they have to get into Janek's office at this institute, and they realize that because they're watching, they do a lot of stakeout, which is really, really good too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to know what you're getting yourself into. Vin Diesel, you can't just drive a fucking car into that window. You got to look into the window first. Now the Rock,
no, Diesel smash.
yeah, Vin Diesel smash. Yeah, the Rock, the Rock has a little bit more charisma, right? He would do the Robert Redford shit. But anyway, so I love movies too much. Anyway, and okay, let me explain why, because I know Chuck right now is biting his tongue not to go in on us for watching all these movies, Jason. But the reason why I love the Fast and Furious movies is because it is such the opposite of sneakers that they balance. It's a perfect universal balance from Universal Pictures. Nailed it. Anyway,
or a turnip cures Elvis. Did you guys notice that stuff in the opening credits?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Red Border, Universal
They
Pictures.
anagrammed everybody's names.
A turnip cures Elvis, which cracked me up.
Yeah.
Sorry, you mentioned Universal Pictures.
No, and that's fine. That's one thing I did mean to say at the beginning. The Universal fanfare from the 90s, like as the Universal, I always like that. That gives me nice 90s vibes. Anyway, so they're spying on him because they think, well, it's probably in his computer. So watch him to make to do a password.
Yeah.
But then this lady comes in and is like trying to sex up Janek. And they're like, damn, she's in the way. But she says something really, really important.
Yes.
I've left messages that you don't return or something.
I left message on your service, but you do not call.
Yes. And they're like, what's that mean? Oh, they see that there's
Whistler. Because he always figures it out. He's like, listen, it's on his desk. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they finally listen to what she's saying, and they realize that he wouldn't have an answering machine. So that's got to be the box, right? Yeah.
So they realize that now,
that's a total 90s thing, right? Like nobody has services anymore for messages. That's hilarious,
right?
Yep.
There's so much dated tech in this movie, but it's part of its enduring charm.
Right, exactly. So then they say, okay, well, let's get into the office. We take that, and we've got what the NSA wants. Okay.
And I like this scene a lot when Robert Redford's at the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, they have one of those electronic key code things, and Sidney Poitier is obviously giving him some kind of coded way to try to break into it or something like that, because he's listening for 10 to 15 seconds.
There's a couple different ways to play this,
right? Because the first time around, it's like Sidney Poitier is like, "Oh man, it's like those things are almost impossible.
Those things are impossible."
And then Mother is like, "Well, those things are impossible." But hey, and he starts looking through a book, and he's like, give him this. This might work." And then it cuts back to Robert Redford, who's just listening and listening and listening. He's like, okay. Yeah, and then he just kicks the door open.
Yep, and he's like, that worked. That's good stuff.
That is good stuff.
It does though expose one of the larger plot holes in this movie though, in the sense that, all right, what they end up finding out about this box is pretty significant. Right, I mean, it is very powerful,
powerful.
And in the wrong person's hands, this box can create a lot of mayhem,
particularly in the United States.
So it begs the question of why isn't it actually under more security? Right, it should not be that easy to take, and if it is that easy to take, why even hire Martin to do it? Right.
Well, I think I get what you're saying there, but Janek, I mean, I would think the NSA would be babysitting a little bit here, but Janek hasn't turned it over yet. He's just been paid to turn it over to the Russians, right? Or whomever he's giving it to.
That's the story, I think.
Right, yeah. So who would be securing it? Janek would be the only person. But Janik wouldn't have a whole bunch of security on it, I don't think, because he's just a mathematician. If it was in the hands of the people that would get it eventually, I would assume more security.
Potential. Yeah, well, sure. Maybe, but you would think he would know what he has, but maybe he doesn't.
He does, but he probably doesn't think anyone else knows what he has.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I'm with you, Chuck.
Yeah.
So at this point, Janik's colleague / girlfriend comes in, and here's another good bit of comedy, because now Robert Redford, and here's the thing about Robert Redford, you look at the guy and you expect him to always know what to say and do. Not in this movie.
No, not at all. Yeah.
He's just a guy. He's just a normal dude in this movie. Because he's like, what do I say here to her? And
well, he's always kind of like the guy. You get the sense that even when he was younger with Cosmo, that he was never really the brains of the operation, right? He just surrounded himself with smart people. Yeah.
There are things that he could do that is very slippery, but that he's the face, not the brains.
Exactly.
So then he gets fed some bullshit to tell her that he's a private investigator, that he's there to because of Janik's wife, and of course the one lady who's Czechoslovakian, I believe. She's like some Eastern Europe. She's like, he no married, or and it's like, well, that's what she would want you to believe. And he's like, he's just, and he says some
and he
stuff.
has to keep kind of changing his story. He gets slippery because he's getting information from the team,
right?
But then he's also making stuff on the fly, so it ends up kind of like this weird Mad Lib, right? That he's just trying to convey, and he keeps painting himself into corners. It's just a really fun scene.
And at the very end, when they're like, and tell her to give him head whenever he wants it. And he's like, give him help. But he successfully talks her into not letting Janik know he was there.
Right.
Because that's
really
what wife
ultimately
would want.
Yeah, and ultimately it does not matter the next day.
No, it does not.
So the next day he is. So that night they're going to celebrate getting.
Yeah, because it's $175,000 payday too. That's the other thing.
It's a huge payday. It's much. I mean, what do you think of that now, bank teller bitch?
Because like he actually goes to his team and he says, look, this is the situation. He comes clean with them and says, I'm not who you think I am, and they have me over a barrel essentially, and I need to do this job. Will you help me? And it's a really good scene where they all kind of have their own reason for wanting to do it. But Sidney Poitier, he's not as convinced. He's really angry that he's been deceived by Martin. And Martin's like, well, it's not like you've ever told anyone why you've left the CIA. We all have our little secrets, right?
And he's like, well, you can't do this without me. You'll all get yourself killed. I'm in.
Yeah, right, exactly. Which maybe, possibly, he does save the day at one point. But there is, but I think Mother, he's like, I'm just doing it for the money. I don't care about you. Just as a joke.
Whistler's the one who's like, I don't give a damn what happens to you. I'm just doing it for the money.
I'm just doing it for the
money. I always like Whistler's through line is all he wants in the world is world peace, or world peace, goodwill towards men and women. That's all he asks for.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're celebrating. Now at this point, I'm thinking River Phoenix has done some Crispin Glover dancing lessons, because they're all like dancing. They're having a good time there, and he's dancing like a madman.
Yeah.
Like I understand why Whistler, because he can't see what Mary McDonald.
That's how itinerant people dance, Geoff.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
It wasn't offensive, was it? I hope it wasn't offensive.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. We'll
cancel. If the 3 people that listen to us stop listening, all of a sudden we'll know.
I'll keep listening. Don't worry. So
unfortunately, Chuck, only blind people listen to it.
And they all know exactly what's on your desk just from listening.
Yep. It's like, oh, a cat just walked by.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is where Whistler and Mother and
This is my favorite scene in the movie, by the way.
yeah, Whistler, Mother, and what's Carl
Yeah.
are kind of obsessed with this box. They want to
Right.
find out what's in it, what's so important about it. Their curiosity gets the best of them, while Robert Redford, Mary McDonnell, Sidney
Kreese,
Poitier,
yeah.
and his wife, Kreese's wife, are playing Scrabble. And they start kind of poking around, and they start seeing these codes start coming up, and they're trying
This
to
flood of data. Yeah.
and I love
The Braille
Whistler's
keyboard.
Braille keyboard.
It's super cool, yeah.
that's fucking
Yeah, it is.
cool. And he's reading what's coming across. Meanwhile, they start thinking about C-Tech astronomy, which plants the seed in Robert Redford's brain that it's an anagram. C-Tech doesn't mean anything.
Meanwhile, one of my absolute favorite pieces of composed music for a film by James Horner is playing, and I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's a lot of really good music in this. This is that time in the early 90s where there's a lot of jazzy sound in scores that I always appreciated.
This is
by the way,
one of my favorite scores ever.
By the way, also all of our blind listeners just found out that Jason's opening a beer.
Yes.
something.
Yes.
Right.
Good job. Dang. Can't believe that came through.
It came through.
Loud and clear, buddy.
So then so he's working out the anagram of what C-Tech astronomy is, while the other guys are looking at the codes and trying to bust what that is. Almost simultaneously, basically what they land on is the C-Tech astronomy means no more or too many secrets.
Too many secrets.
Oh, I thought it meant Cootie's rat semen.
Cooties, rat semen.
Which
Yeah.
is
What
one
else
of the
did they
ones
come
that-
up with? Yeah. Cootie's rat semen is a funny one.
I can't remember. I meant to write them all down, but that's the only one I wrote down.
There was something. Yeah, I can't remember all of them, but there was one that was like pretty out there. It's like,
But they land on too many secrets. And
Too
at
many
the same
secrets.
time that he lands on too many secrets, they realize that this machine can essentially read any kind of encrypted code that
Break
they're
it.
in the United States that they can figure. I mean, and Whistler keeps making jokes about what they can do with it. Like they could crash planes, they could steal all the money in Fort Knox or all the gold in Fort Knox or whatever. Like all this stuff that they.
What
could
did Carl
potentially do.
have? Did he have a book of like IP addresses or something? I'm wondering
Maybe.
what, because he had a black book that had all these important. Like he's a little nefarious with that book, whatever is in it.
Well,
Well,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
because he is the hacker guy, so he's got kind of like probably logins.
Yeah.
Things. Yeah.
and Mother's the one who's like, well, who wants to crash a couple of planes?
Mhm.
And yeah, because like they're seeing the air traffic control of Puget Sound, I think is what it is. Yeah, so it's. By the way, I'm pretty good at geography, so I immediately it's like that's Puget Sound. Anyway, no, I really did.
I believe you.
No, Washington is a very, very distinct section of the country. Anyway, so they realize like, oh, this is like Sidney Poitier immediately.
He
is
wants
like,
them to shut it off.
This is really bad.
He wants them to shut it off, and he says there isn't a government on this planet that wouldn't kill us all for that thing.
So he locks down the place, gets out his gun, tells his wife and kid to get out, which I would think he would not do.
Yeah, you would think he'd keep them there, but
Well, whatever.
but he makes Mary McDowell stay.
Yes. And so basically, they go to meet with
NSA dudes.
the NSA dudes while
Make the
Robert
exchange.
Redford is making the exchange and waiting for them to get their $175,000 check. Sidney Poitier is back at the car and sees in the back seat of the convertible that they're driving around in that Janek's been killed by the FBI or something. Anyway.
Well, he's just been killed. I think he's
just
found
been killed.
murdered. So,
arson suspected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like at that point he's like, oh, not good. not good. All of his CIA instincts come into play, and he's like, "Hey, we got a phone call from your mom, from your mother," and it's like one of those old car phones.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert Redford's like, "Oh, I got to take this. She's old," and just like kind of walks away while they're digging around in a suitcase, which obviously is probably not going to end well.
Nope.
And sure enough, Sidney Poitier is like, "Yeah, dude, Janek's dead, and those guys are probably not NSA."
And Robert Redford said there's only one way to find out. And the stunt doubles for both he and Sidney Poitier do a quick turn. It was so terribly obvious.
Those guys are too old for that sort of stuff.
He does mention that, too, in the movie. He uses I can't remember. Well, yeah, Lethal Weapon had been out for years at this point, right? He uses the "we're getting too old for this shit" line. But anyway, they spin around and go to the building where Redford had been taken to meet with the NSA. It took me a minute to figure out where the hell they were. I'm like, why is this significant? I don't know what this is.
Well, as soon as I saw the post office, I was like, oh, yeah, they were across the street from the post office.
Yeah, you're better at making that inference. But the building is being
demolished. One quick thing here. They're the old homeless guy that's hanging out in front of the government building. He's like, government took my home. Can you spare some help or whatever? He is played by a guy named Time Winters. Now, why did I specifically note that in my notes and in the cast? Just the day before I watched this movie, he came up in another video I was watching that was talking about the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, because he was in that movie too.
Huh, weird.
Oh,
and it's like, Time Winters, what a weird name. And then I'm watching this and it comes up in the I'm like, how about that? So yeah, it's just one of those Matrix moments that glitched for me there.
Yep. So one other thing we should note when earlier in the film, Bishop or Bryce, whatever you want to call him at any point, Martin. After they watch Janek speak, they're at a little soiree get-together, and they run into, I guess he's Russian consulate or something.
Former KGB was what my impression was.
But then he has a weird title on his card. I can't remember what that was.
It was something like corporate attaché or something like that.
Yeah, the point of this is, he's an old communist spook that
Martin had
run-ins with, because they played in the same circles, and it's post-Cold War. So his entire definition of what he does now for the Russian government has changed.
Right.
Probably still a spy, right? Let's not get any illusions that there wasn't still spying happening, but the whole dynamic around that, the relationship between the U.S. and the Soviet or the Russians had changed at that point.
Gregor had offered to take Martin Bishop and Elizabeth to a concert. Is her name Elizabeth? I think it's Elizabeth. Liz, yeah, to a concert. So the scene after they realize that the building's been destroyed, Martin's immediate connection is Gregor had something to do with this.
Yep.
So he's like, I'm going to a concert, fellas, and they're doing some other kind of stakeout work or trying to find something. I can't remember what they're doing, but Martin goes and basically sticks a gun in Gregor's back and says, come with me and tell me what the hell is going on here. And this scene by the pool with all the fog and everything and them talking is really great. And Gregor's saying, I have nothing to do with this. I have nothing to do with this. And there's a shot where he's like in the light telling him there's nothing to do with it. He has nothing to do with it. And he steps forward and his face goes completely dark. And he's like, you have to trust me. I'm like, that's just super cool movie stuff that they did there. So he's like, well, what I'm about to tell you, I cannot tell you here, right? So he takes him out to his car. They're driving
for a drive.
Yeah, they're looking through the books of former FBI agents or former agents of some sort that the Russians thought they could turn. And finally they land on, I can't remember the guy's name.
Well, they see both. I think they might just see Eddie Jones.
Yeah,
but he lost the the not Timothy Busfield guy.
Yes, yes. And he's like, he realizes who, somehow, I don't know what Gregor realizes. It's obviously made unclear for the purpose of the story.
Right.
But he's like, yeah, you should just, you're good at disappearing. You should just do that now.
Yeah, you disappeared once before. I suggest you do it again.
Exactly.
So that's where it gets a little hazy in the movie. You find out later that basically the mob is involved, right?
Yeah.
So my guess is that that Gregor knows mob connections when he sees them, right? So that's probably what he's alluding to there, is it's a mob connection.
I get a little annoyed with this kind of storytelling.
I do too.
Maybe not even more, maybe more than a little annoyed.
Yeah.
But it's like you're withholding information from the characters so the audience can't put the story together. Kind of annoys me a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when then they're pulled over and Gregor makes the comment that it's I think the FBI. Your FBI is so annoying or something like that.
Right.
And then he says, if you want asylum, I can give you asylum in this car. Just request asylum. And he's like really wanting him to request asylum. And so now Martin is in this trap of, does he trust the Russian? Does he trust these people who just pulled over the Russian?
Yeah, he's Edward Snowden now, right?
He's a man without a country in some ways, right? And
well, yeah, because if he asks for asylum from the Russians, that's not going to look good to the Americans.
No.
Yeah,
definitely not.
And but we were talking, Geoff, about the fact that it's not really clear who Gregor alludes to that Eddie Jones is involved with. We mentioned that maybe it was, we find out later that the mob is involved. We figure we figure maybe he's alluding to that, but the fact that he doesn't say it is sort of an annoying way of storytelling.
Yeah, a little bit, because it's one of those things where, like, if things were happening a little bit faster, because what ultimately ends up happening is that Marty has
and it's not like you can offer asylum from the mob either, right?
Right.
So if he thinks that the people are mobbed up, or he says that it's the FBI, he thinks it's the FBI, but you find out later this guy's actually maybe associated with the mob. So it's like, who's he offering asylum from?
Gregor knows otherwise, so it's just poor storytelling.
Yeah, it doesn't quite come together for me there.
If it was one of those things where it's like he's, because what ends up ultimately happening is that Marty has a gun with him, and the FBI finds it.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
Air quotes FBI. Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, is this loaded? Thank you." And then kills Gregor and his driver, and then knocks out Martin. Leaves the gun for evidence. Knocks out Marty and puts him in the trunk to take him to the person pulling all the strings. Now, if that happened faster, like at that scene previously, where they're outside and, and he's saying, "Oh, I know who this person might be," or "I know who this person might be," or if he's in an office building or something, and then he gets sniped or something, that's one thing, right? But that scene plays out. I agree with you. That does get frustrating, because when you look back on it, it's like, man, that scene played out a long time for him not to say something.
Exactly.
So I can agree that does sometimes, because it's one of those things where it's like, why don't you just say the thing that you know?
Yeah.
And then in the movie, but yeah, it's a cliche or a trope in a lot of these.
Kind of keep mystery alive in a just a poor delivery way. Right. We could have done better. But anyway, so they knock him out and put him in a trunk, and they drive him to this place.
You don't know where it is
yet.
But he's basically dumped in a room, and out of the shadows walks Ben Kingsley.
Yeah. Now I will always say that I always wish in every situation, even in Gandhi, that Ben Kingsley plays his character from Sexy Beast, and he just walks out and pisses on him or something. Because that is one of my. Oh my God, we got to talk about that movie someday.
That's a good one.
I fucking love that movie. But no, so yeah, it's Cosmo.
It's Cosmo, his old buddy who got busted back when they were hacking the planet.
Did you guys mention that like at one point he was talking about Cosmo to his team, and Marty's like, it's like, gosh, I hope he forgave you for him getting busted and you being not there. And he's like, well, I hope so too, but he died in prison.
He died in prison. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. No, we didn't.
Yeah, that's really important because Cosmo faked his death on the records.
Yeah.
However, the mob helped him get out of prison because he helped them like hack into the phone lines or something and make a call under the radar.
Yeah, he could help them make calls from within prison and stuff. Yeah.
And so that helped him get out of prison, and he basically got set up with a job to basically work seemingly for the mob. However, here's the thing about this. Obviously, what the mob is selling is like really, really important, like security measures for the U.S. Now, is that good for mob business to sell something that would destabilize the United States?
No. So the mob doesn't want to destabilize anything. The mob wants the box because they want to use it to essentially keep tabs on government agencies that may be spying on them.
Yep.
And also to spy back on the surveillance teams and things like that. They want to use it to keep at one step ahead of the government.
But Kingsley is going to steal it.
Kingsley's the one who's going to use it to destabilize the world economy. Right.
Therefore, the idea being, if there's no more rich people, there will be no more poor people. Everybody will be on the same level. Which is their idea. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's Fight Club.
Communist, Geoff.
It's Fight Club.
Oh, yes, I forgot. I forgot, Comrade Chuck. No, but I mean, and yeah, it kind of goes back to, it ties back to that hacktivism stuff from the beginning of the movie where they are overly protesting, doing whatever they can to basically destabilize the rich to give to the poor, so that he
wants to destroy all records of ownership.
Yeah. I mean, Martin had the idea of helping people who needed help, and Cosmo at this point, who Redford says a few times, you have gone crazy, has taken that idea way farther in his mind, probably while he's sitting in prison.
He was probably radicalized in prison.
Yeah. And there's a really cool shot here at the end of this. Did you guys already talk? I had to step away for a second. The fact that he's going to update the database.
No, we were on our way. No, go for it.
So, obviously, the FBI, air quotes again, had left the gun at the scene with Martin Bryce's fingerprints on it, but that wouldn't do anyone any good because nobody knows who he is necessarily. But
Martin Bryce is a ghost. He's already wanted by the FBI, right?
And Cosmo's like, but what if I update this data here with your name so they can link you to it? Mm-hmm. And he says again, pain, which he had asked Martin about getting hit in the head, and he's like, yes. And he's like, well, try prison. And there's a really cool shot because the next place they drop him off is on a hill in San Francisco, and Alcatraz is in the background. It's like, I just like those cool little nods at, what the movie is saying and what it's showing you at the same time is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So from there, Martin goes to see Liz, and she's been fretting over where he's been because she heard that Gregor died. Martin was MIA. And he's like, well, I need help. I can't do this alone, right? And they basically turn her apartment into new Sneakers headquarters, which is kind of fun.
Sneakers HQ.
Yep.
Which is funny because she's very meticulous. She's
that is very important.
Particular. Yeah. And they've just completely taken over. Mother is dumping trash, and going through people's trash in the apartment, which that is very important.
So we'll get
before that they need to figure out, well, where the hell did you were you taken? We know who now is pulling the strings.
And at this point in time, we know for sure that Whistler is actually Matt Murdock, and he got splashed in the face with chemicals when he was a kid, and is Daredevil.
Yes, but what's important first is the plan, right?
Yeah.
They need to the FBI now is looking for Martin. They know who he is. They also now are at odds with probably organized crime and with Cosmo, so they need to make a deal with the NSA or the FBI. Really, is who they need.
I think
to make
it's the NSA they call.
It is the NSA they call. They need to make a deal with the NSA that if they bring them the box, that they will be protected. And
or if he comes in without the box, will he be protected?
Yeah.
And the NSA guy says, if the NSA guy says yes, I can offer you protection, and they realize it's a lie.
Yeah,
so that's when they decide they have to get the box.
Yeah, they do this. A Whistler and Mother team up on this one, and they create like the phone relay so they can't trace the call quickly, and they set up like a really rudimentary lie detector so they can kind of get a sense from the stress in the voice of the person they're talking to if they're telling the truth or not, and they come to the conclusion that they need the box. If they get the box, they can make a deal with the NSA. So now they need to find out where the box is.
Yep.
So then they're like, okay, so where were you taken then? And it's like they like, what did the road sound like? And he's like, they start to figure out, because we also heard it too when he was in the trunk, that there seemed to be a separation between the blocks of road, right? Which is very common with bridges.
It's interesting. They kind of break it down because he knows he went through a tunnel, right? He knows they went over a bridge and that they went through a tunnel, so they're able to narrow it down to only one of maybe 2 or 3 bridges.
There are 4 bridges. There are 4 bridges in San Francisco. One was fogged over. Golden Gate was fogged over. One was does not go to a tunnel, so that leaves 2. And then based on the
cocktail party, was that? Oh no, the spacing on the bridge
in the seams in the pavement. Yeah.
No, it was the speed bumps that made the difference, because the spacing. The spacing was the first part, and then the speed bumps. It's like, oh, okay, this goes here, but this road goes to and this goes to basically nowhere except for the highest security toy company ever, which is, I would say, any normal person would say, what do they make there?
It's like Wonka factory or
like or illegal
activity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Playtronics.
Yeah. The place where either dreams come true or people go to die.
Oh, and he says, what did you hear next? He says a cocktail party, and they discovered it was like a gaggle of ducks.
That's funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, what does he say? It's like, I'm going to make you an honorary blind person or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. So
congratulations, you're now an honorary blind person.
Yeah. So they start their stake out of that, and they realize that there's one office that always has its lights on. And it was in the whatever corner of the building, southeast corner or whatever. But they got to figure out because they also, Whistler can hear and feel the various subsonic interference in the air from the security measures in that room.
And he also hears that a voice password is needed to allow people into certain areas of the building or rooms.
Right. Yep. So then they start like, okay, there are 2 people who go in right before the light comes on in the room next to where they assume Ben Kingsley's office is. And later they see a light go off and a guy come out, but the other person doesn't come out for 22 minutes. So it must be that guy. And his is his license plate the one that says IQ 180 or something?
Yep, 180 IQ.
Yeah. To which
And
they
Stephen Tobolowsky.
and so they go and they get his trash, and this is when they dump it out onto Mary McDonnell's floor, and
They realize he's a computer dater, which cracked me up because it's so outdated. It's like, man, that was new in '89 or '88 or whatever. But
right. Yeah. So, and they also realize like there are little things in the trash too that kind of tip off what kind of behavior he has. He cuts his cereal boxes in half before he throws them away. Which, by the way, now that I think about
And he
it,
folds
I should do
them.
that too. Yeah, I need to do that too because that's real fucking annoying when the cereal box takes up so much space in my garbage. I get it now. So anyway, I'm going to do that next time. Anyway, so so like basically it's like Mary McDonnell can see it's like he's not just looking for any connection with a woman. He's looking for someone who's meticulous because she can see in his trash like how meticulously he deals with the waste, that he is clearly looking for somebody who is meticulous, very smart, all of this. And so before she gets to that point, like they're like Dan Aykroyd's like ex-wife or something, it's like, nah, she's not going to do any, she's not going to help me out with this. River Phoenix only knows younger people, probably not going to be good enough. Besides, he would just stick his dick in anything at this point. And they all slowly look to Mary McDonnell. She's like, what? It's like, because she's meticulous, very smart.
She explains exactly what kind of person they need, and they're like, well, that's you.
That's you. So she goes and meets him at a Chinese or Japanese place, but the Bad Leroy Brown karaoke killed me.
Oh my god,
so good!
Isn't it great?
So good. It's a big note.
Some restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So then she has a specific list of things that she needs him to say so that he can get the voice activated passcode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has to say, my name is Werner. My voice is my passport. Verify me. So she has to get all of those words because it had been established earlier that they can beat it with tape. So, but it has to be up close and personal.
Yes.
So she's going to record getting him to say each of these words. She's got a little notepad that she's crossing the words out on when she gets them, and she gets down to. They're closing up the dim sum restaurant. They want them out. Stephen Tobolowsky's kind of like, what the hell are we still doing here? And she needs one more word.
It's
and it's passport.
Yeah.
She's trying to figure out how to get him to say it. And eventually she's kind of exasperated. And she just says, you know what? I really love the sound of your voice. It's a great voice.
And he's like, really?
He's like, really? I've always thought it to be
nasally
or something like that. Yeah. She's like, no, it's wonderful. And there's this word that I just love. It's silly. You won't see it. I know. I'm not going to tell you. It's silly. He's like, no. Now he's kind of intrigued. And she says, passport. He kind of looks at her like, what? And then he just says it. And she kind of melts. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It was in this scene that I have to wonder if at all, no, this is wild. It would be a wild connection. But when he started talking, the first person I heard was Jim Parsons' voice from Big Bang Theory. It's like,
oh God, yeah.
Is this a model that they use? Because he just the nasally element of it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is fucking Jim Parsons talking.
Yeah, that is weird.
I don't know why I immediately jumped to that, but it makes kind of sense if you think of that the two characters and how like meticulous they are. It's like, I wonder if that was like he's basically our age. I wonder if that was a movie he watched and it's like, this is what a meticulous person sounds like or something. I don't know.
Very well be. Yeah. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
So he's got so she's got the words. She has everything on tape, but she doesn't have his pass key to initiate the sequence. So she's got to steal that from him. And so she basically,
he's like,
Would you like breakfast?
Would you like
Yeah.
breakfast? And then he asks, "Shall I pick you up or nudge you?"
And then
Yeah.
she's like, check, please. She's like,
Check,
done with this
please.
shit.
Yeah.
She still does go
It's
to his
actually kind of
apartment.
a good line. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, that's
Nailed
pretty
it.
saucy there, Tobolowski.
Yeah, no doubt.
But here's where it gets weird, because she's got to go back to his place, and he starts making dinner. Didn't they
no,
just
this is
fucking eat
the
dinner?
next day. This is the next day.
Are you
This is-
sure?
Yeah, this is later because
Are you sure?
Yeah, because they have to, because the next thing that has to happen is River Phoenix has to get into the building to set
So it's
up
the next
everything.
day?
It is the next day because he's there as a gardener during business hours. Then he goes in and gets into the ceiling, which, by the way,
Yeah.
that security guy at the front desk of the toy shop is the best security guy ever, because River Phoenix is like, where's, can I use your shit?
Your John.
Your John. And it's like, yeah. And he's sitting there the whole time realizing that, hey, some time has passed. Why hasn't this guy left yet? Like, that's the best security guard in any movie ever. Because most of the time,
until he falls for the fact that a completely different person is
the
dressed.
Dan Aykroyd's outside. Yeah. So then it's that night
Right,
that
right.
Mary McDonald goes to the Stephen Tobolowsky's house for dinner.
Right. That's right. And there's a really important thing too. They're practicing at Mary McDonald's apartment, at Liz's apartment, because the plan here is to get past the sensors in the room.
Yeah,
to get
it's
the
both
box,
sound, heat, and movement.
Right. They have to raise the temperature in the room to body temperature.
Yes.
And then even then he can't move more than like
2 inches.
2 inches a second or something like that. Yeah. So this is great. Dan Aykroyd gets him an answering machine. He's like, I thought you might want to practice. And he's like, oh, thanks. And then Dan Aykroyd says something along the lines of, just remember to go real slow.
To which later, when things start to break down, Sidney Poitier is like, you better hurry. It's like,
He's
well,
like,
Like the one thing I can't do.
Yeah. So so they basically set up the whole thing to where, okay, River Phoenix raises the heat. Mary McDonald gets
Passes the card out the window. Yeah.
to Dan Aykroyd. And then she basically is they have to ding dong ditch his door so that she can put the wallet back into his jacket or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then Martin goes into the room because he does find a 3-foot corner that he can drop into the room that's on the opposite side of the sensors.
Yes, you've got River Phoenix building as well, because he's the one who's controlling the cameras and raising the temperature in the building. You've got Martin, who is in the room. He's dropped down. Who's going to steal the box? You have Whistler, Mother, and Crease in the van, who are also surveilling the cameras because they have the link from River Phoenix, and they're in Martin's ear, communicating with him. And then you've got Liz, who is at the Tobolowsky's house.
And everything is going great.
Everything is going perfectly.
Until Tobolowsky shows off his little pet dog.
Yep.
Which is an electronic dog that obeys voice commands, which knocks over her purse, which her wallet falls out to now he can see her name is not Doris. It's Liz. What the hell? So let's go for a ride to the office. And now this is when like Robert Redford's got to speed up, but he can't. And so Ben Kingsley realizes what's going on because at first it seems like everybody's going to get off scot-free. And she says, this is the last time I'll do a computer date, to which Ben Kingsley's like, computer date? There's no way you would match him.
Right.
which is just kicking Tobolowsky right in the nuts.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, Marty.
And then he yells, Martin!
Yeah. He gets this big con moment.
Yeah.
And so it gets pretty tense here because, Ben Kingsley's got his goons just like shooting up into the rafters where Martin's hiding out and trying to escape. But then he convinces them, it's like, hey, the only way you're going to get out and the only way any of your people are going to get out is if you just hand back over the box. Yeah, that's it. So he then gives it to him. And it's like, well, I can't kill my friend, but I can have my goons kill my friend.
Right.
And then it takes River Phoenix belly flopping through the ceiling to take out one of the guys with their guns, so that Martin can kick the shotgun out of not Brian Doyle Murray's hands.
It says, it took you long enough, and River Phoenix, great line. It's like, it's not easy what I just did there.
So as they kind of escape up through the roof to try to get down the fire escape, outside goons kind of
creep up on the van.
Yeah,
and they call Sidney Poitier midnight,
yeah,
which I was like, ooh, that's not a good idea.
Maybe that was his name. Oh wait, no, the goons say that.
Yeah, they call him.
At first I thought that was like his nickname. Never mind.
No.
Yeah, I missed that when I watched it. So okay, yeah, that's
you don't call Sidney Poitier a racial slur. You just don't.
Yeah,
you call him Mr. Tibbs.
That's yes. Wow, in the lilies of the field. So dinner.
The goons. The goons didn't guess who's still in the back of the van. It's Whistler.
Yeah, they get Mother and Kreese out, but they don't know that Whistler's in the van. Yeah.
Yeah, and the most important person in this movie is Whistler.
Totally.
1,000%. And Martin is like, well, you're going to have to drive, basically. He's like, what? He's like,
don't worry, I'll guide you.
I'll walk you through it, yeah.
Which is a hard thing to do, right? Because it's like it's the old stick on a tree, right? So it's like, you got to tell them, it's like, okay, wait,
down one.
Reverse is just down one. I wouldn't have been able to think of that, really. I would have had to have like mapped it out and drawn it. By then, all of us would have been dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Kreese realizes that Whistler is in the van and about to drive, and he's going to use it as an opportunity to take down the guys. But the first thing he says is, "Did I ever tell you why I was let go from the CIA?"
And Mother's like, "No."
No, he's like, I have anger problems or
anger.
My temper.
Yeah.
And
so Whistler starts backing up, and right as he backs up, Poitier, the guys turn around to look at the van like, oh shit, what's happening? And then he takes them out and he beats the shit out of the two guards.
Yeah, it takes their guns, I think.
He like kicks their guns into the air and grabs them and knocks them out.
And you get the one get out of jail free card in a PG-13 movie of the F-bomb.
Yep.
Because he calls him a motherfucker.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah, that was a little jarring at that point, too.
Yeah.
Like,
within
a minute, we had a racial slur and a motherfucker. I was like, whoa, this movie just went way beyond what it had been before.
But then you have probably arguably the biggest moment of sort of slapstick physical comedy, right? With a blind man driving a car.
Backwards.
Just backwards and then forwards through things.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he tells us like, all right, in 5 seconds, hit the brakes. Well, he hits the wall.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'll just stop here. And so they get out, which, by the way, for something as such high security as the toy factory, not much going on there.
This is another minor annoyance story-wise, like the way that they write stuff just to make it convenient, is Liz and Carl are already back at the car, but for some inexplicit, I guess he was talking Whistler in, but he's still on the goddamn roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, what are you still doing up there? You should be down already. And Cosmo shows up with a gun.
Yep.
And another tired moment of Cosmo not being able to kill his friend. It's like, okay, I've had enough of this already, but it suits the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gives him the box.
Yep. He gives him the box, and he's like,
they get away.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you're not, it's like, I don't really want, it's like, it's not about whatever. It's like, here you go, have the fucking box. But we also know that at one point, Mother had procured a shell of the exact.
It's the one he was. Yeah, it's the one
he was using to practice with. Yep.
And so he, of course, switched the box. They've got the actual thing. Cosmo has nothing, but I guess that's okay. I guess Cosmo's like, well, yeah, got me this time.
You got me.
Yep.
All's fair.
Well, it's going to be too late because there's nothing he can really do. He's gotten away, and then they're going to. Well, what happens next is
Darth
it
Vader's
sort of
waiting for
makes
him.
it all moot for Cosmo. Yeah.
James Earl Jones was the voice on the other side of that call to the NSA for protection.
Yep.
And
Moonlight Graham.
Was that his name?
No, that was his name in.
He's Bernard Abbott in this. Sorry.
But he's Moonlight Graham in Field of Dreams, which is the same director.
Gotcha.
and Sidney Poitier's Midnight. So there you go.
Yeah.
Moonlight and Midnight.
Moonlight, Midnight.
Anyway, so at this point, it's like, all right, well, I would like this thing. Don't make me choke you for it. Don't make me promote you to Admiral so I can choke you out and promote the next guy.
Yeah.
Call back to Empire Strikes Back. Anyway, so this is when everybody gets to say, hey, this is what I want. Martin just wants his name scrubbed, basically.
Mother wants a Winnebago.
Mother wants a Winnebago complete with AM FM CD.
Oh man, there's a great line too earlier when you alluded to it at the start of the episode, near the start of the episode, but when Mother is reading through one of his conspiracy magazines in the van while they're waiting, and he says cattle mutilations are up.
Yeah.
And Sidney Poitier just says don't.
Yeah. So then Sidney Poitier's character Kreese wants the vacation that he was going to take his wife on to what was it? Greece, Milan, Athens, Milan, Scotland, and
don't forget Tahiti, Geoff.
And to which I almost said Edward James. Almost it's James Earl Jones says Tahiti's not in Europe. And it's like, well, we'll take geography lessons afterwards.
Yeah.
We're going to send them to Tahiti or not. So then Whistler wants good peace on earth and goodwill towards men, to which this is another great adult line. James Earl Jones says, the United States government is not in that line of work.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then,
then I think that you should try. Eddie says, I'll see what I can do. And then then Mary McDonald's like, I'm good. Yeah.
To which
and she kind of gives a wave of the hand. I love it. She's like, I'm good.
Yeah. And then River Phoenix wants that girl's phone number over there. That special agent's phone number. And this is kind of stupid. But she's like, you could have had anything.
Yeah,
and you want my phone number? Yeah. And he's like, yeah. I'm horny River Phoenix. What do you want? It's like, you want in on this? It's like I've got about a year left. I'm going to be real good for that year.
The only thing missing at the end of this movie is them all jumping up with their fists up and like Flash.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is silly. The whole thing is silly anyway because they don't actually give them the chip that makes the box work.
Right.
So what makes them think that they're going to get any of the stuff that was promised to them? Right.
Yeah, well, he told them. He did tell Moonlight Sorry. It doesn't work anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
well, that's for us to the even more reason why we want it.
He
Nobody makes it work.
mentioned that it only works domestically. So there would be no reason for
The NSA
the
to do
NSA
anything.
to want it unless they wanted to read the other government agencies' mail, like the FBI and the CIA.
Yep.
Well, then, River Phoenix is going to get what he wants anyway.
Well, he
Because
did.
he already got the phone number. Yeah.
Yeah, he got what he wanted.
Yeah, he got what he wanted. That Winnebago, though, mother, you may have to wait on that. But
yeah,
Now they could steal money and buy it.
true.
That's
They have a
true.
chip.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, yeah, because they do
a little bit of that, don't they?
they bankrupt the Republican National Committee
Yep.
by giving money to Greenpeace, the United Negro College Fund,
Mm-hmm.
and there was something
Amnesty
else.
International, I believe.
Amnesty International.
Mm-hmm.
So, thanks, Republicans, for all those things you wouldn't naturally do. And thus is sneakers. If this movie came out 30 years later, the internet would be angry. And it would be so woke it would go broke. But it came out in 1992 when people had a brain and could think about it. Dead air is always good for a podcast, guys.
I don't know what to say.
I was reading something funny about the press kit came with a floppy disk containing a custom program explaining the movie. Parts of the program were quasi-encrypted, requiring the user to enter an easily guessable password to proceed. That's fun. That is
fun. That is fun. This movie has a good imagination.
It does. It definitely does.
Well, and it made some good money too.
Mm-hmm. It did. It made about 4 times its budget.
Yeah.
A little more than 4 times its budget.
These
too
are the
shabby.
types of movies that I hope do return in this post-COVID world where, nobody really wants to go back to movie theaters, but a lot of these types of movies can be made and come out and make money on streaming services.
Yeah.
That's very much what I would like to see. A strong cast of a lot of people you recognize and know, and then just these little movies that can very easily entertain and make money.
Yeah. Phil Alden Robinson, director, I mentioned it already. He also made Field of Dreams, which is another great flick. He also, I want to say he was somehow affiliated with Fletch, like uncredited writer or something, which is fun.
Yeah, maybe.
He didn't have much of a career. He made a few movies. He's still active, but didn't do a whole lot after this. He was a director on Band of Brothers. He directed Sum of All Fears, which was a not so great Tom Clancy adaptation.
Wait, Sum of All Fears was the last. No. Wait,
it wasn't the last one, but it was the one. The only one where Ben Affleck played.
That's
Jack
right.
Ryan.
That's right.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. It came out at an unfortunate time because because of some of the subplots. I mean, basically the whole thing with Sum of All Fears is blowing up the Super Bowl is the terrorist plot, and that didn't really fly in the immediate shadow of 9/11.
No, I imagine not.
Yeah. So it kind of got a little hacked up as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like this movie.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie. It's one of the reception things here, or under the reception. Vincent, was it Vincent Canby's? Yeah, it's being jokey without being funny, or breathless without creating suspense. He was he didn't really care much for it, but Vincent Canby's kind of a jerk ass. But I mean, it does kind of, it makes sense though, right? Like it is jokey without it hitting you over the head with it being jokey, which can be very unfortunate for some movies that are 30, 40 years old, where it's like, we got a bunch of these jokes. See? And it's like, that's not funny ever. I don't imagine that ever being funny. But this movie ages well because it was something that you think is going to be funny when we saw the previews for it at 15, 13 years old. But it's something that we appreciate then, but can understand even better 30 years later.
Yeah.
And it remains, sure, like with any plot, there can be things that you can pick apart, but
it's not surprising that this movie didn't hit with critics, but that audiences like it.
Yeah, I mean, it hit with quite a few. I mean, it hit with quite a few critics, but a lot of the bigger name critics, a lot of the top critics, was a little shaky on it. But I mean, but Vincent Canby saying that Robert Redford and Sidney Poitier are too old for this type of movie.
That's just kind of silly.
Yeah,
that's not a very good criticism. I think they're both pretty amazingly fun in this.
I loved Redford in this, honestly.
Yeah.
Redford was great.
I always like Redford. Every time I see a movie with him in it, I'm like, I always forget how much I like Robert Redford.
Yeah.
I like that he went out as a villain in the Marvel movies. He's a villain.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not at all what you would have expected, and I thought played very, very well. I don't, Chuck, you hadn't seen the Captain America movies, have you?
Not all of them, no.
Have you seen Winter Soldier?
No.
That's the one I'm specifically referencing. Well, okay. Spoiler alert. Robert Redford is a bad guy.
Damn it.
But
he'll always be Roy Hobbs to me. So.
But no, but that's kind of what he retires on, and which is kind of playing against this type, and that's good. That's good for him.
Yep.
That shows that you can do that without you worrying about what it does to your
rest of your career.
The rest of your career, right? Because the rest of his career, he's like the most likable person ever.
Well, yeah, but I mean, anyone would be smart at this point to play a role in a Marvel movie and have residuals for it. So he's probably like,
absolutely.
Hey, I'm retiring. I might as well get money for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and then he came out of retirement to do a single scene for Endgame. So,
yep.
Yeah, I'm sure he, he sees he understands what's fun in Hollywood and what works,
Yep.
So, all right. See this movie at your local cinemas.
Yep.
With your time machine and go back 29 years. Anyway, what's on the docket for next week, Mr. Moore?
Next week, we have one of my favorite films. I've been lucky. We've been doing a few of my favorite films ever recently. Stand By Me, another River Phoenix film.
Philip Rivers Phoenix.
Yeah. Yeah. Did not intend on this month coming in with a connection of like Sean Connery being in the first two movies and River Phoenix being in the last two movies. But
yeah, I didn't even, when I recommended these two, I wasn't even thinking of River Phoenix being in Sneakers, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of easy to do because River Phoenix isn't a main player in Sneakers. He's there throughout the whole thing, but he's really a kind of a bit of a bit player.
Well,
yeah, I'm saving a lot of my thoughts on him for next week, because
I look at him in Sneakers as being passing the baton from Robert Redford to River Phoenix.
Yeah.
It's like he's part of this. He is going to be me 20 years from now or whatever,
Right. But yeah, that's a good one. It's one of my favorites, and it's really timeless. Every time I just love that frickin' movie. So look forward to talking about it more next week.
All right. So let's
Geoff,
see. Where
can they find us?
Oh, hey, filmseizure.com. That's central headquarters. That's Sneakers headquarters. We are on the floor of Mary
Liz's
McDonald's apartment. Yeah.
Going through Stephen Tobolowsky's trash right now.
Exactly. That's exactly what we do. filmseizure.com. That's where every Wednesday you get this show, Film Seizure. And on Mondays, you get Monster Mondays. And let me see what's coming up here. The Green Slime next Monday.
Nice.
Yeah, that's fun. You can also find stuff from me at bmovieenema.com. Those are the text stuff there. This month I'm doing Full Moon Fever, which is a bunch of full moon movie, but because this is the sequel, I decided to do more of their sexy movies from Torchlight, as their sexy wing was called. And this week is Zorita, Passion's Avenger.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then on Saturday evenings, watch B Movie Enema, the series, episode 4 this weekend, Werewolves on Wheels. So you get some fun biker action there.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's just over. You just go to YouTube, look for B Movie Enema. But yeah, for Film Seizure stuff, wherever you find podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find it.
Find
Listen
it.
to it. Tell us what you think, or don't tell us what you think if it's bad things.
Well, if it is bad things, tell us what you think so that I can sit there and sweat over whether or not Jason's going to fire off a response or not. Please do those things.
That's funny. I haven't done that before, have I?
Not exactly, but you've gotten a little sideways in groups at times, and I'm like, oh, geez, dude. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. It didn't hurt us. Didn't help us, but didn't hurt us. That's fine. Anyway, yeah. So we will come back. We will reconvene on the great railroad tracks of life next week.
Yes.
Stand by me. So until next week, I have been Geoff Arbuckle.
I am Geoff, sweating over Jason posting something.
I wish I'd come up with an anagram for my name, because I would have said that. But I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.